We're joined now by Liang. She's a chair professor of economics at Willamette University. Thanks so much for joining us there, Ayhan. Now, this is a significant moment. The addition of the UAE and Saudi Arabia, particularly because of the financial clout that they bring to the table. But what about the other nations? How do they contribute to the benefit from the organisation?
Good to talk to you, Sally. So you're right. I think the mission of the 6 countries would mean that, this BRICS plus countries are going to join force together and take advantage of their own strengths. So you mentioned like UAE and Saudi Arabia, they have strategic assets like oil, but they also have deep pockets. But there are also other countries that have, for example, strategic locations like Iran, like Ethiopia, and also like Egypt. And also Ethiopia is a large economy that is growing with young population. So I think all these countries come together, they can really help to complement each other's economy, and they can join force, and they can also advance the developing countries' voice. And that symbolizes, all these developing countries are dissatisfied with the current global order. So I think it has both symbolic and also very substantive economic and political implications.
And how will this loose collection of countries, work together to have political clout? What do they need to do to really make an impact on the political stage?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think, we all recognize the differences in terms of political systems and in terms of, geopolitical priorities of all these variant countries. But I think one thing in common, or 2 things in common, is they all wanted to advance the kind of sustainable development goals, but also reform the current global system to advance the voice of the developing countries. So there are many different shapes and forms where these countries can work together. For example, they could definitely improve their economic clout in order to influence some of the political decisions. One particular, I think, relevance in terms of the cooperation is on the financial reform of the global architecture. For example, the NDB, the New Development Banks, they're trying to increase their local currency lending, which I think to a great extent will help to reform the global financial architecture, which then go a long way to affect these countries' economic voice and therefore political voice.
Let's talk about that. Brazil's president called on Wednesday for the BRICS nations to create a common currency for trade and investment between each other. What are the difficulties involved in such a project, especially given the economic, political, geographic disparities between all the countries in BRICS? And what would a BRICS currency look like, and what could it mean for the US dollar?
Right. So I definitely think there is the historical, sort of past dependency, because the dollar now still, accounts for 60% of the global reserves and also over 80% of the global payment system. So this is going to be a long process in the making. But I think using local currencies to invoice trade and also using local currency for lending, to issue bonds, for example, which is ongoing right now, that the NDB just issued the rand-denominated bonds, and they're going to do this for, Indian rupee in October. So I think all these are small steps towards, in a way, sort of de-dollarize using these local currencies, which is under the control of these respective countries, instead of using the dollar, which has significant economic costs, but also political risks. So I think definitely, there are challenges because, there is the concern about how to balance trade among these countries and, which countries or how these countries can together act as, for example, the lender of last resort. That's why they're making some progress and institutionalize some of these arrangements, such as the contingent reserve agreement and also such as the BRICS pay. So all these, I think, are steps and components towards that bigger sort of alternative financial system.
All right. Liang, thanks so much for your insight. Chair Professor of Economics at Willamette University.